Well, I'm actually old enough to remember you as a player. And, people talk about Indiana and basketball, and I don't think people outside of the state really have an appreciation for how good and how big and how important high school basketball is to that state. I think in a lot of ways, the culture and the history of high school basketball in Indiana supersedes even IU, and it certainly supersedes the Indiana Pacers.
Right.
And you were a genuine state icon coming out of Newcastle, played for your dad, Sam, at that high school, averaged almost 40 points a game, Mr. Basketball. Give me a sense for what it was like to be a huge state iconic celebrity heading to IU at the age of 16, 17 years old. Pretty heady stuff.
Yeah, I grew up in it, obviously with my father being a coach. So the dinner table, we talked about basketball. But I got firsthand, Seth, of watching Hoosier hysteria. People painting their picket fences that bordered their lots, the school colors. We were green and white, and we get into tournament time, and every fence would go from maybe being red or brown or black to the whole city was painted, green and white. And so windows were covered with, finger painting of Trojans and Newcastle and let's go to state.
Guy could get a big head.
No, it really is because, and I played in front of 10,000 a night, 8 different times my senior year. So I just left Indianapolis on a recruiting trip, and my favorite posters in that airport of the 10 largest gymnasiums in the country, and Newcastle stands atop, and 9 of the top 10 attendance largest capacity high school gyms are in the state of Indiana. I grew up when Coach Wooden was winning his last in '75, and Coach Knight was winning his first in '76. So, 2 huge icons, and to be able to go through high school, play for my father, then play for Coach Knight, who was somebody I dreamed about playing for, just like my father. And now here I am 22 years later in the coaching profession, and I'm coaching at the place that Coach Wooden made legendary. It's still very surreal that those things have happened in my career.
Did you have any reservations about playing for Bob Knight?
None. And I think that's
what he was about.
And I think it hadn't been as much time elapsed with this job yet. Same thing with following in, I'm not really following in the footsteps because Coach Wooden, it's been a while since he's coached, but his legacy is just as powerful, if not more powerful now than it was when he was even walking around here in Westwood. And that's the legacy that he's produced, not just in basketball, but you see it in all of our programs here on campus. And you go into an academic building, you see the Pyramid of Success hanging. He's touched so many lives and so many different, and Coach Knight was the same way in the state of Indiana. Nobody knew about motion offense. Nobody knew about it, getting in a defensive stance with one hand up, one hand down, like he taught it. And there were so many things that he brought to the table in coaching. And I didn't understand the coaching end of it. I just know that's who I wanted to play for.
So I want to get into a little bit what it is like to actually play for Bob Knight in his heyday and all of his glory. I'm sure you thought you were prepared for it. How much harder was the reality than what you anticipated?
Well, I always kind of laugh now. We laugh as former players because you have former players that try to talk to you before it happens. And it's like, yeah, okay, you get it. But you really got to live it. You got to go through it. And then I started doing the same thing as a former player. And you laugh about that because you really got to go through it. And when I say go through it and play for Coach Knight, it's a unique experience. It's the thing Coach Knight, I think it makes him special, is he doesn't care if you're Mr. Basketball, an all-star, or you were ranked, back then we didn't even have rankings, I don't think, but you were ranked 150th out of your class. It didn't matter. He was going to make you better than what you wanted to become. That's why some players, I think, struggled playing for Coach because he wanted you to be better a lot of times than what you wanted to be. And I can remember he told me, hey, you're not working hard. And I'm like, that couldn't have been a bigger slap in the face to me. Tell me I'm not athletic. Tell me I don't play.
You probably said it in a little bit more of a colorful way than what you're saying.
He had much more colorful vocabulary than I had. But I think those type of things motivated me to be a better player. And when I look back on it, Seth, that's why I appreciate so much out of him is that he saw something that I couldn't even see in myself, and he made me a much better player than I even envisioned becoming.
I didn't realize until I was reading to prepare for this interview that you played on that 84, or that you were on the 84, I should say, U.S. Olympic team that won the gold. What was that like?
It was phenomenal. It was the last amateur team to win gold because we lost in '88, and then the Dream Team, they opened up the professionals in '92. So Just to be invited. I remember being invited. I was one of 77 players invited to those trials. I mean, you look at the names that were invited to those trials, we're looking at future NBA Hall of Famers. So that was a treat for me, but I really played well. I was a 19-year-old. I probably went into it a little bit differently than others because I didn't feel the pressure, because I was so excited I thought it was, hey, this was a chance to have open gym and I'm playing against these icons. So I relaxed and I played well to where I ended up being a starter on the gold medal team against Spain out here. So played really well throughout the Olympics, and to play with those guys and those group of guys and then that coaching staff, special memory.
Is it true that Michael Jordan bet you $100 that you wouldn't last 4 years at Indiana?
Right, and he hadn't paid that $100.
He still hasn't paid?
So the interest on that is really climbed.
Maybe he doesn't
Since
have it. Maybe he's just
1984,
tapped
it's I know his shoe line and everything struggled, but that interest is really moving in a good direction for me.